Alright, so this is going to be a video about Android user loyalty and how it has surpassed the iPhone. So what is user loyalty? Basically that is if you have an Android phone and you go and buy a new phone and it's another Android, and after that you go and get another Android, and each time you get a new phone you're planning on getting a new Android. And same with iPhones. If you had an iPhone 5, then you get an iPhone 6, then you get a 6S, then whatever Apple makes after that. And it's going to be like that. You keep staying with whatever brand. And how has Android user loyalty surpassed the iPhone? This is one thing I'll tell you. First of all, Android has many devices, and iOS only has one or two. It's the iPhone and the Plus model, and sometimes the C model, which I don't know if they're going to make another iPhone 5C. I didn't really see the point of the first one. Alright, and basically there's a graph here, and it says new OS, Android. It says 82% of getting another Android, 20% of getting an iPhone, 45% of getting a Windows phone, probably because you can put Android apps on there now, 39% for a BlackBerry, 59% for a Basics, and 62% for a first phone. Actually, iOS is 16% of getting an Android phone. If you didn't like iOS, like me, I had an iPhone and I started going with Android, and now I kind of prefer it. And afterwards, there's a 62% for, I'm trying to say what it's called, 62% of, alright, what did I say, 16% to get an Android, 78% of getting another iPhone, 35% for getting a Windows phone, 50% of a BlackBerry, 24% of a basic phone. I don't see why you would go back to a basic phone. Maybe if you had an Android because you got it. Because I know many Android users, especially ones with cheap phones, use their phone like the same usability of a basic phone, and same with first. But iOS, as you can see, Android user getting another Android is 82%, whereas an iOS user getting another iPhone is 78%. And I can tell you why. There's many people with Android. You have many devices. You have your HTCs, your LGs, your Samsungs, your Motorola's, your Nexus. You have your generic brands, and like you'll see a lot of like no-name phones like on Amazon for like $60. And you have so many different devices from those companies. You have Samsung, you got the S, the Note, the what's it called, the A series now. LG, you have the G series, the smaller phones. They have like, I believe they make many prepaid phones. What was it? The LG Leon, I believe, was their prepaid phone this year. Last year, I believe, was the Tribute, which was actually a pretty good phone. Where HTC, you got the M, the M series, the E series. You actually got quite a bit of options to go with. And Android user loyalty, this is one thing, and this is how I think of it, and this is probably the reason how it surpassed it. You know, when you have a Windows computer and it gets about 5 years old, 4 years old, not even, actually most of the time it's about 2 to 3 years if you're lucky. For me, I've gotten this laptop to last quite some time. Well, that's because I probably know more about tech than the average person, but the average person, it's not going to last that long. And when it's done, you go and get another Windows computer. You go to Best Buy, Amazon, anywhere, and you go buy another Windows computer. Let's say you had a Dell computer from a couple of years ago, then you'll go and get a new Windows computer. It doesn't matter the brand, it's still going to be a Windows computer. And loyalty is basically you keep going with the same operating system. Also, another thing is many people do not realize they're running Android. This may sound confusing, but many Galaxy users don't know what operating system their phone is, or know what an operating system is entirely. Every iPhone user, even like some non-technical ones or non-techie ones, I could go up to them and say, "Hey, your phone's iOS, right?" And they'd be like, "Yeah, it's iOS." Whereas Android, they'd be like, "No, this is not an Android phone. This is a Samsung phone." because I think part of it has to do with the Droid series, which used to exist, the Droid Turbo, the Droid 4, those kind of phones. Droid Mini, all those. I think that's another reason people see Android as a phone instead of an operating system, whereas they don't know they're running Android. They just think, even though it has many of the same services and apps, and it just looks a little bit different. That's another thing about it. I actually really see Android user loyalty surpassing the iPhone, because you see a lot of stories about people who had iPhones trying out a different phone, maybe going for an Android phone this time, especially with the Galaxy phones, because those are I hate to say this, but they're so similar to the iPhones, because a lot of their apps look the same. They have some of the icons kind of look the same, especially if you look at the phone icon, in my opinion. What's it called? The home button is very similar on both. So if you have an iPhone, it's definitely an easy switch. Or it's not extremely easy, but it's a bit of a change. And you see a lot of people who have iPhones, especially some of the people that have to have the most popular phone. You'll see 1 week they have an iPhone, the next a Galaxy, because they need the most popular phone, really. And that's another reason. In my opinion, Android user loyalty, you'll see a lot of people who definitely will go with Android because it's the only operating system that allows you to do computer-like features on a phone, which Windows Phone should really open up that. In my opinion, I believe they still have the syncing instead of copying, like on Android where you just plug it in and move files over. I think Windows Phone should definitely open up, because Android's described as the Windows of phones, and I really do see that. That's why I brought up the computer thing earlier, where people go and buy a Windows computer, keep buying them, and the same happens with Android. And this is just a really interesting article, and there's actually a graph below and a picture of a guy hugging an Android. And my opinion is, this is definitely really true. I know people saying that this year was the biggest year or Apple said this is the biggest year of Android switchers to iOS, and that's probably because people had Galaxy S3s as the phone they had and bought it because they had the biggest screen, or iOS 8 definitely did lessen the tightening and the lockdownness. I don't think that's a word. Alright, it has more features that are similar to Android, which I know Android users call some of the features that iOS has old, and I definitely would say. Also, one thing I really want to say, I know this is going to make people mad, and you can yell at me all you want in the comments, but I bet I prefer Android, so I'm not an Apple person by any way. But if this was the article was the other way around, if it said iPhone users are more loyal than Android users, you would see all the iSheep comments and all, and you would definitely see people hating on this article all the way. But since it's Android, I don't see why anyone's freaking out about it. It's the same thing, really, except Samsung made a name for Apple with calling them iSheep, even though people that said the S5 was great for removable batteries are buying S6s now. So I don't really I see that now, but this video has gone on way too long. I was planning on being like a 4-minute video, but I end up going on too much, so it should take a long time to edit, especially concerning the computer I used. That's all I have to say now, and finally, bye.